This video is part of a larger series wherein I will be watching every film made by Studio Ghibli. If you haven't already, I suggest that you watch episode 1 first, as it contains important information about this series. Today I watched Omoide Poro Poro, or Only Yesterday, from 1991. And spoiler warning. Getting right into this one thing that became clear to me as I watched this movie was how non-traditionally it seemed to have been constructed, at least in comparison to many of the movies and shows I've seen. There are sort of two stories going on throughout the course of this movie's plot: Taiko, the main character's vacation to the countryside, and the memory of her 10-year-old self back in grade school. And as each of these narratives progress, you start to get a better and better understanding of who Taiko is as a person and how she became that way. I don't want to get all analytical with this video. I'm sure plenty of other people have made full breakdowns of this girl's psychology, but I'll just say that one of the big takeaways I took from this movie was how seemingly insignificant events to adults can be hugely impactful to children, and have a massive impact on what type of person they'll become. Stuff like being teased by other kids at school, being told not to improvise in a school play, or eating pineapple for the first time. The movie really sold me on why moments like these were so important to show to the audience, both through Taiko's introspection over these moments, but also through the presentation of these moments to the viewer. I pointed out in Kiki's delivery service that the climax had no music, and that immersed me into the film more, and Only Yesterday has almost no background music whatsoever. And a few times that music is included, it was almost always coming from the radio or the TV, or a song that the characters were singing. Basically, the movie never shows you something that Taiko herself isn't seeing, and this was one of the many reasons that I found myself able to connect with and understand her mental state. The one scene where she's trying to wrap her head around dividing fractions was absolutely captivating for me, and seeing how frustrated her sister got with her was honestly kinda heartbreaking. Like, I'm really good at math myself, but the reason I'm good at it is that I think about numbers and geometry and all that stuff in relatively abstract ways, similar to how Taiko does. When she turns her paper over and draws a circle before splitting it into pieces to represent division, I could just feel the gears in her head turning, and it was super sad when her sister tries to explain it to her, but after one failed attempt, she just turns the paper back over and says, just follow the steps that the teacher gave you. Cause like, trying to learn by memorizing the rules might work for some kids, but obviously it doesn't for Taiko, and I wished so badly that I could have jumped through the screen and explained it to her in the way that I knew she would understand. There are several more moments with this kind of dynamic between Taiko and her family in the film, and I can't help but feel like this is a commentary on how Japanese culture is far more conformist than in the West. And while that culture leads to arguably more success and stability, it also leads to a lot of repressed emotions. It's no surprise that this would be the kind of culture that gave way to anime, which is primarily seen by the mainstream as a medium for weirdos, people who are outsiders from normal society, and that sentiment is not entirely inaccurate. I also really liked the aesthetic difference between current time and the flashbacks in this movie. The present day looks pretty similar to how most Ghibli movies I've watched in this series look, but whenever we're shown one of Taiko's memories, everything becomes very hazy and washed out. It does a great job making it feel like a memory. Like, Taiko doesn't quite recall every detail of the house they lived in, but she does remember her family or her classmates and the things that they said to her. You know, it's a trope, not just in anime, but almost everywhere, that flashbacks have a vignette around them and some effect done to the color or lighting. And I think that this often comes across as generic and not put together out of artistic vision, but rather because it would be the quickest and easiest way to communicate to the viewer, this is a flashback. And I'll be honest, it wasn't until a good way into the movie that I actually understood that the 10-year-old girl is actually the past self of the 27-year-old girl, and that the narration is 27-year-old Taiko reminiscing about her childhood. But once I understood that, I found each flashback sequence immeasurably more engaging, and I even remember at one moment in the film where the art style changes from detailed, vibrant present day to the painterly, washed out past, and I immediately understood we are in a memory now. Funnily enough, then Taiko actually narrates something like, I remember back when I was 10, and I actually got a little frustrated with the movie because it felt the need to spoon feed me the information that I was so proud of picking up all on my own. I know, probably one of the minorest nitpicks possible, but I thought it was funny. One of the other moments that I really liked was when Taiko runs off into the forest after being asked if she wants to marry Toshi by his family and live with them. And she thinks about how she had been enjoying all this farmer work, but now that she was actually being asked if she wanted to commit to that lifestyle, she became very apprehensive. It did a really good job acknowledging that everyone has flaws, because the whole movie I got the sense that Taiko was reminiscing on her past in a way that implied she had become a better person, and she absolutely did, but it's not like everything in her life is all peachy now, you know? She still has stuff to work out, and she does with the help of Toshi directly following this scene, ironically demonstrating how good of a couple they would make despite and also because of the situation that leads to this interaction between them. And then it all pays off at the end of the film and how Taiko's memories of all her classmates are surrounding her on the bus and even trying to get her attention, but she is completely unfazed. She has moved on. It was a very sweet ending that I liked a whole lot. Probably the biggest issue I took with this film was that the beginning felt very slow, and it definitely took a while to build up some emotional momentum. This could be because of what I talked about with me not quite understanding the dynamic of 27-year-old Taiko and 10-year-old Taiko for a good while, but if I'm honest, I think it has more to do with the flow of information we get about her. Like, when you meet a new person, you don't just instantly call them your best friend and start caring about them like family. You have to spend time getting to know them and sharing experiences with them. The process of becoming emotionally attached to a character or a real person is just that. It's a process. It takes time. And yeah, there are many ways that work can speed up that process. The more similar a character to you is, or the more you can relate to them, the better you can understand their mindset and the faster that you'll form that attachment. And there are many universal situations or attributes to give to your character that will make them connect with a wide audience. Being part of a family is probably the best example. But Only Yesterday doesn't really take that approach. It doesn't focus on what makes Taiko broadly relatable, it focuses on what makes her unique. It tries to get the audience to understand her rather than the character being made to best fit the audience. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, that's pretty much everything I had to say about this movie. Thanks for watching, and please let me know what you thought about Only Yesterday down in the comments, assuming that you're watching these films along with me or had already seen this one. Oh, and also I forgot to mention, I would give Only Yesterday a 7 out of 10. Anyway, in the next episode of Watching Every Ghibli Movie, I will be tackling Kurenai no Buta, or Porco Rosso. If you want to find out when that video will be dropped, you can check the description for a schedule of when the other parts in this series will be released. And with that said, have a wonderful day, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.